Welcome to Dynamo's Dozen, the podcast that we bring you each and every single week, where we talk about whatever may be on our minds, from pro wrestling, sports, entertainment, music, movies, fresh socks and jocks, and everything in betweenies, and never forgetting the talkies and that little white bag of white powder. You dirty, dirty little boy. Welcome to Dynamo's Dozen. I am your host, Ian the Dynamo Kelly. I am joined, as always, by the shopkeeper, Niall Hogan. And as always, we bring it very raw. No fucking outtakes on this show. No second chances. We are live, pal. And what a show we have in store for you this week. But before we get to any of that, be sure to smash the like button, smash the bell notification button, and even more importantly, subscribe to the show and let us know what you think in the comment section below. We are, of course, available on all the socials. We're at Dynamo's Dozen on Twitter, at Dynamo's Dozen on Instagram, and at Dynamo's Dozen on Facebook. And we are Dynamo's Dozen at gmail.com if you want to email the show and send us your thoughts and opinions on our beautiful faces, or if you think our screen is your screen has been blocked by some ugliness, let us know too. Were you still watching? If you
we'll send you a link to the audio.
Exactly, we'll send you a link to the audio. No problem.
That's how you feel. Yeah, absolutely.
So Niall, another week down. You know, more wrestling news. Lots of some positive bits and pieces this week as well. But of course, we're going to touch on certain bits. But we're gonna try and steer away from the mess that is Tony Khan's hair for a little while. Because obviously his wallet's still intact, as he likes to let people know. He's got the money, but pretty soon he may not have anyone to fucking pay.
Before we get into wrestling, I suppose we should send our thoughts and prayers to the people in Florida and in the States at the moment, getting battered by these hurricanes and tornadoes and all at the moment.
Yeah.
I seen it today. I don't know if you've seen Disneyland and Universal today getting absolutely battered.
They've had to shut down for 2 days at least.
Yeah, they shut down today and tomorrow and stuff like that. So just people stay in, stay safe, and you know, especially a lot of people over there holidaying and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I was there a few weeks ago myself. So, and then I mentioned it to you guys, the rain that we were getting every night was unbelievable. So I can't imagine like a tornado or a hurricane heading in there. Be safe. And of course, a lot of our wrestling people that we love and stuff live down around that area and stuff like that as well. So shout out to them, stay safe, stay indoors, and don't be risking that. You know, it's not worth it.
100%. No, we have a lot of friends there as well, and like all those friends that we're talking about as well, who are safe and they're watching this show, they will know me, and they'll know me personally, that I cannot go without telling a little joke just to bring a smile to people's face. If you are experiencing this harsh weather at the moment, the safest way to keep yourself safe from hurricanes, in the words of the great Joe Biden, is to get your vaccine. All right, you'll be fine if you get that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm shitting with you people. I'm shitting with you liberals and Democrats and conservatives. No, 100%. All joking aside, yeah, it looks nasty down there. Niall's only back.
Named after yourself as well. Hurricane Ian.
Hurricane Ian is here. Boom! I told you all I was coming.
It's not the first time you've gone through a room like a whirlwind. That's for sure.
Yeah, and this isn't a MAGA hat before I get all the hate comments, you know. Although, if anyone has a free one, send it on. I'll wear it.
Just going to let our mascot out.
Yeah.
He just came in there to say hello, as always.
As always. That's Niall's little doggy friend. Is Niall, you never mentioned his name on the show.
Coda. We've two now. We've Coda and Ronnie. Ronnie is his half-brother. He's only about 14, 15 weeks old at this stage, so he's a little bit of a whirlwind at the moment. He wears Coda out and stuff like that. So we've got a couple of mascots now, to say the least.
Awesome. It's been a bit of a crazy week. Well, it's been a crazy few weeks, as we know. But we're gonna start on something a little bit more positive this week, and something That's, I suppose, for you and me, and for a lot of the old school wrestling fans out there, will be happy to hear that cosmetically, this is the word that has been used on, I believe it was Pro Wrestling. I'm not too sure. Sorry,
PW Insider, I think it was.
PW Insider. There we go.
PW Insider, as far as I know.
So Triple H is making cosmetic changes to the new kind of his way of the WWE. His cosmetic changes is what he said, but essentially what he means by that is he's trying to change the belts, which I'm glad to even hear that word rather than titles.
Yeah. He's accelerating the cosmetic changes, is what they said, which is understandable. He's in there now. He's in the hot seat. I'm sure he wants to put his own stamp on WWE and stuff like that. And from everything we hear, it seems to be going very, very well at the moment. He's reverting boys back to their ring gear, and it's only a matter of time before people revert back to their names. And I wouldn't be surprised if NXT starts rocking the black and gold again and stuff like that and all. He's certainly making changes and stuff like that. And from all accounts, we'll get into some other stories here shortly about backstage people and wrestlers and stuff like that. It's being held in very high regard at the moment with the stuff that he's doing. And hats off to him.
Apparently, the morale is at like an all-time high, which is obviously great to hear. I mean, that's what we want. We want to see workers and the boys and girls enjoy their time.
If you don't enjoy your career, what's the point in doing it?
Exactly. Interesting one on the belt changes, because it's still kind of rumor and innuendo at the moment, as Bruce Pritchard likes to say. Cody had something to say, and he was kind of just laying it out there that if he did become the champion again, he would like to bring the Winged Eagle back. And I mean, that's music to our ears for sure, and especially you, Ka-ching. It's one of those things, isn't it, that it became very corporate, I suppose, with Vince. It was just WWE sign everywhere, and the tag belts look geek, if you ask me. I'd like to see a little bit more personality, I suppose, in the belts again. Because you could always differentiate WWE title belts from every other title belt. And the same with WCW. You knew the television title because it was all gold with little bits of color in it. You knew the United States belt because it was not too dissimilar to the Intercontinental title, but there were key differences. And then, of course, the big gold, and even the Winged Eagle, and then the big round kind of Winged Eagle that they brought in, during Rock and Triple H era as well. So I'm sure H is trying to, put his own stamp on it and bring some more tradition to the titles again. Because, well, just before I shut up talking here, it's the same though as the boxing belts. You know what I mean? Like the WBO, the IBF, the WBC. Like you can still always do. Why change something that isn't broken? Like,
similar to wrestling, there's too many belts in boxing as well. That's part of the problem, isn't it? But I think it's I suppose people aren't getting overly excited about in terms of the belts compared to the other stuff he's doing. And I think what's happened is over the years, because there's been so many changes and stuff like that, I think what we've probably done as wrestling fans is we've detached ourselves from the belt, and we've bought more into the legacy of the title. Because the belt, the way it looked and stuff like that, if you look at a lot of the belts that are in there at the moment, they don't really look like, like prizes, like a belt, like something that you would, when you look at a Winged Eagle or an Attitude belt or the big gold belt, it looks like a real prize that you'd put your life on the line to try and win. And that's the beauty of it, and of course the legacy that goes with it and stuff like that as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what way he does it and how he goes with the belts and stuff like that. No doubt they're going to look spectacular when he changes them and stuff like that, because he, like, himself, like he's an aficionado really when it comes to this kind of thing as well.
Well, speaking, that's a perfect segue. You should take the next headline.
Yeah, it was the Street Profits. Were interviewed.
Boys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're electric. But they were crediting Triple H, like a lot of people are at the moment. with their WWE success, and they went back to their NXT days and all, and talking about how pivotal he was and how hands-on he was in NXT. And I suppose when you hear these stories coming out, you know, he had the health scare and stuff like that. And when he went off site for a while and he had to recover and recoup and get himself back and stuff like that, it must have killed him to see how that brand was turned inside out with the work that he did. And basically, him and Sean and all those guys that put in their hard work, and Albert was down there as well, and
John Moss,
Robbie Brookside, John Moss, all these guys, the work that they put in to build up that brand and make it so good to the point where it was nearly the brand in the company, which says a lot when you're up against the likes of Raw and SmackDown and stuff like that. And to see it turned inside out and what it became and stuff like that, it's great to hear these stories of how hands-on he was down there with different people and stuff like that, to coach them along and bring them along and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Because down through the years, he's got an awful bad rap at times for how he treated people and stuff like that. And obviously he's able to step out of that now and see it from a much wider business landscape and stuff like that, which is great to see. And it's great to hear these guys coming out and saying it. And it's not only that, I mean, these guys, it's not like they're coming out just to give him credit and stuff like that. You can see it visually yourself when you look at the product at the moment. You can see the changes that he's making and stuff like that. So hats off to him and hats off to them as well.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because obviously anyone that knows you knows that you run obviously the upper tier shows, and we talk about coaching a lot, like, and we talk about how a certain coach will piece his team together, and this goes for any sports, like we say each and every week. It really is down to that, isn't it? I mean, the old regime was just becoming tired and numb, and it was almost a dictatorship, and you don't upset the old man, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. This is now basically a fun place to work with someone who knows the business inside out. Not that Vince didn't, of course, of course he did. You know what I mean? But it's someone who literally respects the tradition of the art of pro wrestling and the product of pro wrestling. Forget the art for a minute, but he's taken what he's learned, in his territory days, I suppose, and what he's learned within the Fed, as some people call it, and put it all together, basically. You know what I mean? He's taken everything that he's learned from being under the learning tree of Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, of course, probably mainly, and really kind of created an environment here where it's just something spectacular. And I don't want to spend too much time on just praising Triple H, because we know how great it is, and we've got a lot of stories to go through. But I think his better half is also doing her part and leaving the coaching, if we want to call it, and that's why I'm calling it coaching, and where I'm coming from, and hopefully our viewers do. She's leaving that to him and going, right, this is your baby. This is creative as your thing.
She's after taking on the mantle of a massive global company, what I mean? And like she's probably like, I can't imagine what her day looks like at the moment after stepping into that role and stuff like that, and dealing with like different business deals and subscription deals and TV and broadcasting deals and so many different countries, so much stuff to deal with. I'd say she doesn't get a minute in a day to absolutely breathe, even, you know what I mean? And she's taking it on.
She was born for that, though, wasn't she?
She was, yeah, and she was born into it, and it was really her destiny, to be honest, you know what I mean? And it's coming true now and stuff like that. But yeah, again with Triple H, I mean, I think they've both quickly identified that if you're sailing a ship, you need everyone round those oars and rowing with you and all going in the one direction. So this lark of like hazing people at a management level and testing their will and their resolve and stuff like that, it's a bit outdated at this stage. You need people pulling with you and doing the best for you and stuff
outdated.
Like that. And I think and H being, such a worker himself for so many years and stuff like that, he understands that side of it inside out. So when he's having conversations with some of the wrestlers in there and stuff like that, when they talk back to him, he's able to gauge it. He understands it because he's sat on that side of the table. You know what I mean? So it's great from that point of view. Where the old man, I know he's been around it and born into it, and he was in it all his life and stuff like that and all. but he's kind of led with an iron fist most of the time and stuff like that. And he obviously had his favorites that he looked after and stuff like that, and he didn't lead that way. But for most of the roster, I would say 90% of the people he dealt with, it was an iron fist job, you know what I mean? And it was like, do it kind of thing. And, you know, 100%. Not nice.
Yeah. 100%. And that's a good segue, because obviously Steph is working on a deal, but it's kind of touted that there's a new streaming deal coming for WWE content in Australia. Foxtel Group leading subscription service, 4.5 million
subscribers. Yeah, massive.
Yeah, which is absolutely massive.
Yeah, and we know from when they've gone on tour in Australia, when they've done the big Melbourne shows and stuff like that, and all, they have a huge following down in Australia and New Zealand and stuff like that. So it shows. Definitely. It shows when you think about the stuff that's coming out this week in the news, and you think of, like, you know, we don't want to necessarily revert back, but you revert back to Tony Khan, who was trying to convince us last week that wrestling starts in Jacksonville and ends in New York. You know what I mean? It's, you know, it's a different, like that. That's why I said, when I talk to people, even when people come into the shop, I go, AEW is over there giving you an alternative. WWE is here, who basically controls the world of sports entertainment and wrestling. And, like, you can't compare them. There is no comparable level at all, except they both use a ring. That's the only comparable level. But it's a different world.
I was convinced from day one that this knowledge that Tony Khan had of the business, and, like, he's a historian and all that, like, you know, we talked off air about that, and I was like, I'm not convinced by that bullshit. I think it's just to appease a new certain audience, because nothing I've seen within that company, other than hiring a load of veterans that nobody listens to anyway, which is absolutely disgraceful, I just might add. I mean, I'm sure there's one William Regal thinking that he might want that contract to run down again and possibly go home, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, we heard this week there's huge rumblings on AEW at the moment. There's a lot of people looking back over the wall again. And it's no surprise. It's like, who wouldn't want to work for Triple H?
Well, that's and that's it. And I wanted to add to this, because there's been a lot of idiots. Shout out to lads like, you know, our boy fucking Morris from Cheap Heat and Kigo and all, who've been kind of following our tweets and you know, basically calling out these wrestling nerds for what they are, who just believe in every word that Brian Alvarez and all these fucking dipshits put out, and Meltzer and all. And, you know, this is the very reason that Punk got roiled in the first place. And we're kind of going, you're literally willing to just sacrifice the guy that's given you your biggest gate and your biggest pay-per-view, just for the sake of having these idiots who are literally probably going to try and get a job in WWE anyway. I will add, I'm going to get rant incoming. Those three fucking idiots, Kenny Olivier and the fucking Hardley Bucks, they will not last a fucking year in WWE. Not a hope. Not a hope. And especially, you know, the New York Cowboy, Adam Page, who he used to be a fan of. I mean, he may as well just go and get a gig beside your man playing the guitar in New York and put on his little tidy whities, because that motherfucker, he has no hope. I mean, to come out with a statement and actually say, I don't take advice from veterans. This is what's stemming. I mean, look, I'll say it once again. Amen, Cody Rhodes. Fair play. You went there, you got what you needed, you saw the light, and you got the fuck out. These elite, I told you, they are a cancer on the name professional wrestling. They really, really are. It's been seen by people now that are professional wrestlers. And I just wanted to back up your point that you were making about how many people want to leave. For all the people that are there going, oh, we back the Young Bucks, and you've got that absolute moron Miro coming out acting like a hard man, then going, oh, fuck off, you know, we are all elite wrestling. Yeah, you failed in WWE, pal. That's what you did. You failed there, and you went over and you got the money. The fact is that people like FDR, real professional wrestlers, are actually looking at this and going, "Now we were actually with Punk on this, and we're out. We want out."
Miro's an interesting one, because there was a report, wasn't there, a news report out last week that he was considering his own situation.
Why did he have to chime in on the Punk situation then? You know what I mean?
And I heard his wife is strongly considering going back. So, little
It's the
apples
H
growing big
effect.
trees sometimes, but it's just, look, it's one of those things. Look, they do have a captive audience and stuff like that, and there is an audience for that kind of stuff, and people do follow them. And look, the one thing we say about pro wrestling is not every fan is the same, and not every fan has to be the same. And if that's what you like, fine,
I
so be it.
agree.
That's your thing, and more power to you and stuff like that. And look, everyone deserves a chance. I'm sure Paige is sitting at home wondering why the hell he said what he said and how it's going to pan out and stuff like that, and how it looks and stuff like that. And hopefully he's strong enough, and hopefully he's talented enough to understand that he put his foot in his mouth, and hopefully he'll sort it out, because we are fans of him and he is very good. He's very, very
That's it.
talented.
That's the only thing that annoyed me. I mean, I've been like, as long as this podcast has been going for like, and even with the four podmen, I think I've been the biggest advocate for Hangman Page.
I think we've all been in on him,
and it's funny. The one guy that people were like, he's a bit of a shyster, is Darby Allin, the one that went boom in through the years and it stays here, doesn't go out that way. You know what I mean? So look, I wish them well. Absolutely. I'm going on a rant here, but like I do wish them well. I've said it. I'm still rooting for them. I just think if Tony Khan decides to let this CM Punk situation get to a point where they can't make money out of this whole thing and make it look like a work into a program in some way, shape, or form, then I believe he has failed. Absolutely failed, because there is no way on the planet, as much as I'm throwing digs out there to annoy the indie marks and calling, Kenny Olivier, and calling the Hardley books because that's what they are. If there's no way that he can sit them down and have them actually not even reconcile, just come to a professional solution where they can't make money out of this, then he has failed as a promoter. He's failed as a man manager, and it'll just be another notch off a belt that had no notches on it anyway, other than deep pockets.
Yeah, no, he's a long road ahead of himself and a big wall to climb. And it'll be very interesting to see if he's strong enough to do it, or if he potentially just walks away. Let's see what happens.
Like you would agree with that, wouldn't you? I mean, this has got to be when Punk is fit and healthy. This has got to be a case, right? You boys just sit down. Let's fucking.
Well, the talk going around, I think late last week or early this week, was that apparently he's done with them and they've come to an agreement on a deal apparently, and he's done. That was the talk on around. Now I don't know whether that's true or not.
I heard that.
That was the talk. So I hope that's not the case, because I think wrestling is better if CM Punk is in it. But again, not to dwell on what happened and the locker room stuff and stuff like that. We weren't there, so we don't really know what went down and stuff like that. But look, hopefully this thing it'll come out in the wash and sort itself out, and hopefully they come to an agreement and they get back on the horse again and get going.
Go on to the next one.
Yeah, the next one is really an interesting one, because this is about the WWE Raw viewership is up slightly against the tough NFL competition. As we know, the NFL is kicked back in and stuff like that. So Monday nights is big football night when the NFL is back and stuff like that. And Raw normally takes a smash at it. But I think the first week, or stuff like that, they had a look at it and they were up 100,000 viewers on the previous week, from 1.6 to roughly 1.7. So that's a very positive sign, and if they can maintain that into next week and further weeks and stuff like that, that'll be fantastic. It means that they really are improving the product and making things change and stuff like that, So a really good one. The next one is a really good one. The Bailey one. Says she and Finn Balor feel that they are back in 2015. Now the story to this is a real good story. As we know, Bailey and Finn Balor, they're really good friends. They're like best friends type of thing, But apparently they were backstage at a show. I don't know if it's a SmackDown or a Raw taping. But Triple H walked by, and they were saying, they were talking themselves, that they felt that everything backstage is really cool again and stuff like that. And it felt like the way NXT felt back in 2015. So Triple H was walking by him, and he kind of was walking by and he says, how you doing, guys? Obviously he acknowledged them and stuff like that. And Bailey said, this feels real weird. She said to Triple H, and Triple H stopped and said, well, what do you mean? She goes, feels like NXT in 2015. You know, it just feels weird compared to what we've been used to. Obviously, with the old man, I'm sure backstage when the old man was there, the tension, you could cut it with a knife, I'd say. But apparently, everything backstage is pretty cool. Everyone's talking, it's relaxed. No one's looking over their shoulder. All that, they can relax and go about their business and focus on being better wrestlers and better performers and all that kind of stuff. So it was a nice little story that came out. You know, Triple H walking by, says hello to the two of them. Bailey goes, "This feels real weird." Triple H stuff and goes, "What do you mean?" And they go, "Well, it just feels like that environment of NXT from 2015, which we know is electric." So yeah, no, it's cool. Great to hear it. Great to hear.
I love hearing stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's you know, and it shows that they made the right choice, which we'll get on to later about how wrong choices are being made, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The next one is quite interesting. Our old friend MJF makes it clear how he will decide where to sign in 2024. I mean, it's look, Niall, take it off me. I mean, yeah, exactly.
He did a show with Ariel Helwani, and he did another one with the Barstool. And he made it very clear that on the 1st of January 2024, he will be surveying the landscape, but it will be all about the paper. And
isn't that what it's about?
To a point, it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, listen, this is what pro wrestling's all about. Listen, in the words of the great Hulk Hogan, make as much money as possible.
Yeah.
Get out of it with as least injuries, as little injuries as possible. And then get the fuck out and go home rich.
But what I would say is, pending on where AEW is at on the 1st of January 2024, regardless of what money they offer you, the other place might look a lot more appealing anyway, even if you have to take a pay.
Oh no.
So it's not necessarily the money, but the money is a factor.
Well, he'll make money there regardless. He'd make more. I'm sure he would make more money there tomorrow, regardless.
Can you imagine if he went back there and Jericho went back there for his last run, and we had both those boys in a run to WrestleMania? that would him and Jericho. That would be just money. Be unbelievable, you know what I mean? It'd be classic, and especially at a WWE level, you know, the way they will pitch it and blow it out of the water and stuff like that.
Yeah,
be absolutely awesome. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. The next one is the interesting one. This is the use of the 2K game. They have Randy Orton in there, and what happens is when they put in a superstar, they do all the detail with the tattoos and stuff like that. So this girl, what's her name? Katrin Anderson. She does a lot of Randy Orton's tattooing. So she believes that she owns the copyright to those designs. Now, some of those designs, I think, as we know, I don't play the game a lot at all, but I think you can buy some of that stuff as part of your character build-up and stuff like that. So you're paying for these extras and stuff. But what she's saying is she feels that WWE, 2K, and Ukes, who have done the games, have used her copyrighted material without reimbursing her, basically. So there's a lawsuit going on about it. But the bigger picture on this is this could change the industry, really, because as you know, you get a lot of this probably in the Madden games as well, NFL, or I don't know, in the hockey, if the guys, you'll be closer in the hockey, if the guys are tatted up, I don't know if they show their tats.
Well, you don't get to see them, so they're all right.
Yeah, but you know, when they whip off the shorts and they want to have a go and stuff like that, or whatever it is, you know, so I don't know, but this could change, this could legally change the landscape for this kind of thing, the ruling on this case. Now, I think they did say that WWE back in, I think it was 2009, they saying, or 2008, they offered her like something like $450, which is, I don't know. I don't know what that works out at, or whether that's insulting or something like that. Maybe I don't know really, because it's not too sure. But I know anything to do with the gaming industry, normally if you have a copyright and stuff, it's probably worth a few quid to you. Because I know that a lot of the guys who are featured on the covers of the games for years, they get royalty checks on those games. So it's an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on it and see where it goes.
Sounds kind of messy, because on one side, like, you know, I'm kind of into the arts.
Yeah.
You know, I doodle myself. And you kind of go, Right, I can understand where she's coming from. Like, it'd be nice to get a little bit of kickback because I come up with that idea, or or I didn't. But then on the other hand, like, you're kind of going, it's kind of messy. Like, how do you prove it? Because you'll have a lot of tattoo artists, I'm sure, coming out saying, "Oh, well, I done this for that guy," but
Yeah, no,
that guy,
it's not an issue of proof because it's Orton's tattoos and she tattooed them, so she obviously created the designs, probably in conjunction with Randy Orton. Where I think it gets a little bit grey is
I meant for other people. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry, just to be clear.
absolutely.
I
But
meant,
these are quite like definite. You know what I mean? It's his tattoos on him in the game. But I think where it gets a little bit grey is if you walk into a tattoo parlor and you purchase a tattoo, especially one that's drawn for you, like a one-off, not one that you pick off a wall or something like that, like an anchor or something. The question is, who owns the tattoo? Does the guy who paid for the tattoo own the tattoo and own the artwork? Because
well,
I
I
would
assume so.
assume Randy Orton would have been part of the design of his sleeves and stuff like that. He didn't just rock up to her and go, I fancy 2 arm sleeves today, draw away. I'm sure he would
Well,
have like
he's got
requested
a
the
lot of
skulls.
writing on him as well,
Yeah,
hasn't
and the
he? Like, you know
skulls
what I
as
mean?
well, and he has it all done in a certain way. I mean, skulls would be a big feature, and the snakes and stuff like that. They would all be a big feature of his character. And you
Yeah, that's a good
remember that
point.
time when he got injured, he went off and he came back tatted up with sleeves and stuff like that. It was like it was like Prison Break with Schofield or something like that. He just came back fully tatted with
Well, like,
sleeves.
I'll give an example. Like, you
Mm.
see that there, that's DBD, so that's
Yeah,
Dimebag Daryl. I got
yeah,
that the day after Dimebag Daryl from Pantera was
yeah,
shot.
yeah.
Does that mean the guy who put those lettering on me owns the rights
Well,
to
see,
that comic?
I don't know. That lettering that you have there, is that his logo? Is that the way? Is that his logo, or is that
No,
something you
no,
designed with the tattoo artist to put
no.
on your arm?
That was just certain font that,
Okay,
you know what I
yeah,
mean. So
yeah. So that's where it gets a little bit grey for me. The question
it
is, if you
does
walk into a
actually.
tattoo parlor, I'm sure Orton spent thousands on his tattoos with the amount of ink work he has done. So the question is, who eventually owns the artwork? Like if I walked into her tattoo parlor now and I said, "Can I have Randy Orton's 2 sleeves?" Would she do it, or would she have to modify it? That kind of way. It's kind of
Yeah,
like
well, like, I mean, you're the shopkeeper, so like if someone walks into your shop and they make a business transaction with you for whatever, you know what I mean?
mm,
Whatever, whether it's, say for example, they get a mug made or something or blah blah
yeah,
blah, and you enable that transaction to take place,
mm,
and then you want a piece of that because that person's got famous and they have the mug there. It's like, well, you got that from my shop, but yeah,
yeah,
but I bought that from you,
mm,
so therefore it's now mine. So we
yeah,
made a business transaction. You've been reimbursed for the transaction
mm,
according to your price list.
yeah,
Hence, the same way this lady has, done a business transaction with Randy Orton according to her price list. So
yeah.
it sounds a little bit greedy to me, but I understand. Like, this isn't art that has just been yoinked from Randy Orton and somehow brought to another tattoo artist and gone, "Hey, put that on me." So
Yeah.
it's very grey. It's
It's
very
very
grey.
grey. It'll be interesting to see how they rule on it, absolutely, because
Yeah.
it is one of those grey areas. But depending on how the lawsuit goes, could change the landscaping of that whole art area in terms of like even if you had I don't know, I'm not familiar really with games. I don't really play games. But even
No,
if you
well,
had like a GTA or a Call of Duty where you walk into a room and maybe a piece of artwork is hanging on the wall, like the Mona Lisa or something like that. If you had a thing like in Paris or something for Call of Duty, do they then have to pay a royalty to whoever now owns the estate of the Mona Lisa or something like that? And,
sure,
and that
sure.
that that's what I'm thinking of, and stuff
Mm.
like that. Even if like this could go down way down into games and stuff like that. If you're playing like war games and the soldiers wearing a certain design of combat or something like that, does that go back to the guy who designed those combats? Does he own that, or So it could be never ending, really. You know what I mean? Like you look at the cars that are used in GTA. The Porsches and the Ferraris and all. Are they going to come knocking and going, well, look, you're using our brands and stuff like that? Whereas before they would pay to have their brands in the games, it'd be product placement.
Yeah,
Now
of
they're looking
course.
at I suppose if you're not paying, is it a case where you've kind of like, jumped the loop there not to pay someone that should be getting paid? So let's see. It's going to be
It's
an
just, it's
interesting.
just, it's another example of kind of corporate America and just take what you can get, really, isn't it? But we'll watch this space.
Mm.
Next one, Earl Hebner gives his blunt thoughts on Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis considers Vince's fall from grace to be an act of karmic
Retribution. Isn't that a beautiful wording of it there from Earl Hebner? Karmic retribution.
Jesus. Well, especially from a good old Southern man.
See, now what happens going forward is when we talk about anything in relation to karma, we'll have to call it karmic retribution now.
That is pretty neat, great. Actually. Yeah. I like that.
That has a T-shirt written all over it, doesn't it?
Karmic
doesn't that have like an Earl Hebner T-shirt written all over?
So does that mean if I get that tattooed on my arm? No, I'm only messing up.
Yeah, it'd be like, remember he did that damn right I did, and I'd do it again about the Montreal screw job. You know, so I'm sure he'll come up with something about that karmic retribution. So it'll be interesting.
He's an odd one, Earl, isn't he? Yes. He's I mean, look, we're not gonna get into the.
They did kind of get fucked back in the day over something very petty, though, didn't they? Selling a bit of merch out of a shop. Come on, they're flogging they're promoting your product and making a few quid in the side. You paid them.
Let the boys make a few dollars. You know what I mean?
Are they making any more than what you pay the wrestlers' royalties? Let's get
exactly. Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, the next one was an interesting one. Jake Roberts was on a podcast, and he recalls a WWE feud he felt was in poor taste. And of course, he spoke about this before. I think it was 1996 with Jerry Lawler, and they brought up all about the alcohol and the drug abuse and all that kind of stuff. And it was played out on screen, but it didn't come across great, and it wasn't received great. So he was basically just recalling that. So it was an interesting one just to bring up. So it's something.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you could say, oh, well, look, he went back on it. You know, he did it to himself and blah blah blah. But it was quite clear at that period in time in his life he was trying to change it. So I think he was more saying it that he thought it was in bad taste, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like we've seen it before. I mean, we've seen it with Jeff and a few others as well, that it's brought on as an on-screen type of thing and stuff like that. Generally doesn't happen a lot these days. Although MJF knocks it out of the park generally with Moxley and guys like that as well. Yeah, he doesn't care.
I thought he doesn't give a shit. But it's kind of like, remember Jericho when he was when he had that phenomenal feud with CM Punk, and he was pouring the whiskey on him outside the ring and everything. Yeah. Like that was done really well, and he was making him drink the whiskey and stuff. Yeah. It was kind of like, now you're an alcoholic, he's like your father. It was like, whoa, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, we like when a bit of realism is brought in it, but it has to be. I don't know. I think maybe it was the fact that it was Jerry Lawler who kind of cuts from a different type of rope and a different type of era, and he kind of like, I suppose they're supposed to come across like they mean it, but you know when they come across like they mean it, like they're nearly goading you and willing you back in there or something like that, you know, that kind of thing. So,
well, I mean, anyone that hasn't heard about that story, Jerry Lawler knows how to, overstep the line a little bit. We remember the story where Brett actually ended up knocking the piss out of Jerry Lawler for real with those potato punches after he hit him over the head with the crutch. Yeah. So it was kind of like, I think Jerry Lawler sometimes can go into business for himself a little bit and maybe needed to be goaded in sometimes, especially back then. So I don't know. That's their story, and how would we know? But
well, we did say sometimes when we look back on these periods in wrestling and some of these things they did, they don't really sit very well now in 2022 and stuff like that. When we look back at them and stuff like that. At the time, I'm sure we were going, yeah, go Jerry, you tell him. You know what I mean? But, but now sometimes just some stuff doesn't age well, and that's fair enough. Like,
yeah. The next two stories are interesting. I'm going to let you announce.
Well, no, you should take this one. You should definitely.
Well, I'm going to take this one. Take this one.
I'll take the last one if you want to.
good friends of the show, obviously. The Knights, Ricky and Saraya, good friends of mine, who I haven't need to get in contact with again soon. Their baby girl suddenly made an appearance on Dynamite, and she has now debuted for AEW, and not as a general manager or any of this kind of stuff. She is back as a performer. So it's an interesting one. This one, I have to be, I suppose, careful a little bit in how I, give my opinion. But then again, they know me, so they know I give my opinion. I would have thought the fact that she was back, especially under the new WWE regime, that would have been the perfect place for her to go back. So I'm a little bit surprised.
Yeah, well, I
that it
think
happened under the AEW banner.
Yeah, I think what it is I don't think she's been cleared to wrestle yet. And they're still looking into that at the moment. I think what they've done is they've brought her in to kind of head up the whole women's division and probably bring a bit more legitimacy to it and stuff like that. Like what they did a while ago, where I remember when they brought her in and she was with Sarah Logan and Mandy Rose, and then they brought her in. And remember she came up, of course, with Becky and stuff like that and all. So she carries a lot of credibility in women's wrestling and stuff like that. And obviously she's had so
Rightly
much
so.
experience. She has so much experience as well that she can pass on to the girls there in AEW. And a lot of those girls who are very, very good performers and stuff like that. But sometimes they just lack that kind of it factor, if you like, that moment in a match or that moment in time where it propels them to a different level. And she might be able to bring that. And I think that's probably what they've brought her in for. I'd be very surprised if she's donning the tights again and getting through the ropes and stuff like that. I'd say it'll be more in a kind of a managerial role, maybe for a stable, or maybe in there as an advisor, or maybe in there as maybe the vice president or the president of the women's division, or some sort of role like that, I'd say. But yeah, it was amazing to see her. She looked the business. She looks like she's kind of back to herself again and stuff like that, and that she's happy again in life, which we obviously love to hear.
That's the most important part.
Because she's gone through some amount of shit over the years and stuff like that, and gets a lot of crap over and stuff like that. So it was great to see her walk out smiling and pumped up again in front of a crowd and stuff like that. And I assume she's gone there because I assume she spoke to WWE, and WWE said, well, we kind of don't really have anything for you at the moment because like you can't perform, you're not cleared to wrestle. And we kind of, maybe because of the level of the talent that they have there at the moment, plus the people they have working there and stuff like that, they probably don't have that kind of position for her that AEW can probably offer. That's how I read into it anyway. You know, that would be my 2 cents on it, you know.
Sure. That's fair, but like I suppose the most important thing, it's good to see her back on a screen again and good to see her back in the ring. On that there, Britt Baker, without a shadow of a doubt, she is the standout of AEW at the moment, isn't she? No disrespect to friend of the show, but I'm not going to mention the name on purpose. Because I've been what's the word? Lowballed? Is that what you call it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a couple of times. So I'm not going to say nothing about that. But no, I definitely think Britt Baker has just gone from strength to strength. She definitely has a WWE run at some point, without a shadow of a doubt. So, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm looking forward to seeing where her career goes. And obviously, with someone like Saraya in there, it can only benefit people like her, right?
Her experience will be huge.
Yeah, 100%. Don't worry, we still love you, Thunder. So why don't you go with the next one?
Yeah, the next one this week is obviously a kind of a cool week where they're celebrating 25 years of Bill Goldberg. I've been quite critical about this, as I have been about his career for a long time and stuff like that. They say 25 years and stuff like that. I think they're just counting years. But if you look at it in kind of wrestling terms, like, you know, if you hear like 25 years of Triple H or something like that, he's put in 25 years. You know what I mean? He's put himself through the meat.
25. It should have been called 25 years of injuries.
Well, I don't know about that either. Like, it's just a kind of it's an interesting one. It'll be interesting.
Ask some of the lads in WCW.
Oh, you mean injuries dished out, not received? Okay, yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm sure he was a tough one to work against. He was kind of a rough diamond initially and stuff like that, and was propelled into a huge position very, very quickly, and stuff like that. But then, I don't know. I suppose when you think of fans and stuff like that, I could see why people would be big fans of him and stuff like that and followed his career and stuff like that. But then I look at, you know, when I see Bill Goldberg, I think of like shitting on the house in Mania 20 and stuff like that with Lesnar and stuff, both boys on the way out. And I know, as Steiner says, it takes two to make a dance and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, those moments kind of stick out to me. But I mean, there's other matches in there that he's done all right. And then some of his comebacks have been questionable at best. But you know, he's
nearly killing the Undertaker, for example.
yeah, but he's got in there with Lesnar and stuff like that. And when you're at his age and stuff like that, you know, it must be quite daunting to do that as well. And I think they did a documentary on it and stuff like that backstage where you could see how nervous he was coming back to the business and stuff like that, and also. And how he wanted to go back and have a couple of more runs to show his son and stuff like that, which is admirable from a father's
like
point
that,
of view
yeah.
and stuff like that. And also, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it and see the kind of stuff that they cover and stuff like that. 25 years of Bill Goldberg. So
you know what? I'm gonna be nice. Like I grew up a WCW kid. It was the best thing going at that time. You know, that wasn't NWO, and it was. You know, I find myself today when you look back, right? When you look back at when he held the Giant up,
yeah,
you know, for that power bomb, and you look at the spear, like, and the intensity. I mean, the one thing that you can never take away from Bill Goldberg was the intensity in the ring when he grabbed those ropes and look into the hard camera.
Yeah,
like, oh my God, like this man is a monster. I mean, even the moment where he beat Hogan for the belt in Atlanta, like it was. There is some great moments with Bill Goldberg. Like, and make no mistake, look, everyone knows I'm a Bret guy. I'll always be a Bret guy. He was green. He was fucking messy. He had no reason to be in there with someone of that ilk for longer than 5 or 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was trying. Accidents happen. I get it. But when we look at the positives, which I'm going to try and be now, like, there's some great Goldberg moments. I mean, Jericho with the Greenberg stuff and coming out with Ralphus when he had the hair up and he had those silly little fingerless gloves and everything and calling them out, and then he eventually gets his comeuppance. But then, you know, we all know the bad side of that and him not wanting to do business with people. But there was some great moments with Goldberg in there, and it was, you know, the match with Dallas, right? Halloween Havoc.
With Dallas, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And he had didn't he have a match with Rock as well? His match with Rock as well wasn't too bad either. I think
it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty decent as well. But you know what's really cool about him? I mean, the coolest thing about him is everyone kind of wants his entrance, don't they? That way where security knocks on the door, and he just comes out pumped up to the gills, and he's just walking along that corridor, and the camera follows him like the UFC. The UFC actually stole Bill Goldberg's entrance when you think about how they bring their fighters out to the ring.
100%.
And then he comes out.
I think Goldberg took it from Tyson and all, didn't he? And some of the boxing.
Really cool, yeah. Where you just get that
really
lamp on it.
Yeah.
You can see, and you're right the way you touched on his intensity as well. He's a very intense guy, and I just can't imagine what he's like to be dealing with at the gorilla position before he goes out. I'd say he.
Do you remember? You remember when he used to? Do you remember when he used to come through the pyro?
Yeah,
and he'd sniff in the
smoke,
sniff it in, and then he'd look. And then you'd see the smoke coming out of his mouth,
like a bull. Yeah, like a bull out of a cartoon, like
or scary looking human being. Like,
really
cool.
No,
look, I mean, he has his place in wrestling history, and rightly so. And you know what? Why not celebrate 25 years of Bill Goldberg? Like, because you know there's good moments in there, and you know,
absolutely,
it's good to see.
Yeah.
Let's get on to the fun part. The one that everyone tunes in for, of course, this year in wrestling history, and of course, birthdays.
This week in wrestling history. Yeah, it's
this year we'll be here all fucking night to be a three-parter.
September is kind of an interesting one when you look at this, because there's this week in September is kind of a quiet week for wrestling through the years and stuff like that. Even though there's some significant stuff out there, but you have to dig deep. You have to dig deep for this week and stuff like that, because it must be, even when you go back through time, this must have been a kind of an in-between week between coming out of SummerSlam and some of those big events. And then
don't forget, you're building for Survivor Series, and like in WCW, we're building into Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, so. And remember, at that time, we didn't have all these other pay-per-views and shows that happened in between. So there was kind of that space and that run-up. So this was kind of a lull time to let people kind of dampen down and digest and decompress and stuff like that before the build into Survivor Series and those Halloween Havocs and stuff like that now. But there's still some interesting stuff. We start off going back to 1977 in a sold-out Madison Square Garden. Dusty Rhodes defeated WWF champion at the time, superstar Billy Graham. How could we forget superstar Billy Graham? And Peter Maivia, the grandfather of The Rock, beat George Steele, with both matches ending via countout. And the main event on the night saw Chief Jay Strongbow, Larry Sabisco, and Tony Garea beat Captain Lou Albano, Ken Patera, and Stan Stasiak in a 3 out of 5 falls match. That was 1977. Now, that talking about a hard hitting lineup there, go back down through that lineup there, all hard hitters. That was a big night.
Captain Lou Albano as well, someone we've not discussed enough on this podcast.
And of course, Ken Patera. How could we forget Ken Patera?
And Stan Stasiak, of course, relation of Sean Stasiak, who was in WWE for a while.
Next up is 1993, New Japan Pro Wrestling, a promotion that's not often featured on the show and stuff like that, but a great promotion. The Osaka show came from Japan, where one Hulk Hogan defeated the Great Muta, which was groundbreaking at the time.
By the way, you've seen the match, right?
Yeah.
It's Hulk Hogan can't wrestle, right?
Anyone who tells me Hulk Hogan can't wrestle, I go, do you ever go look at him in New Japan? Do you ever go look at him when he was down in the territories and stuff like that? Sometimes you have to wrestle for a while to understand what the business is and get more out of it and longevity by pulling back on some of the silly stuff you do.
Like I made a quote earlier that Hogan said, like, take as little punishment on your body as possible, make as much money as you can, take as least bumps as you can,
and get out that door.
And Hogan in that match is still down in the red and the yellow, but he understood the respect that the Japanese fans had for the art and was willing to go and put a match in. My God, I mean, there's chain wrestling in this match. There's work.
I have a DVD somewhere. I think it's a 2-disc. And I think it's the best of Hulk Hogan in Japan. In a lot of the promotions he worked for over there, boy God, he put in some serious matches.
Phenomenal for his size as well.
But see, the thing about it over there as well, you're not going to get away with the mediocre. You're not going to get away with Shaft and the fans over there. They'll let you know fairly quickly. They're very educated over there and stuff like that. So yeah, really important. Other famous names on that card included, of course, Jushin Thunder Liger, Brutus Beefcake, Jake Roberts, and of course Road Warrior Hawk. They were on that show as well. I
remember Hawk's match. I think it was Fujinami or something. I think it may have been.
Could have been, yeah. Next up is 1987. Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, the Midnight Rockers, defeated Boris Zukov and Soldat Ustinov to win the AWA World Tag Team Championships, but had the decision overturned when it was discovered the Rockers pinned the wrong man. Controversy even back in 1987. Who could write it?
This is the start of the barbershop.
Who's the referee that pulled that 3 count and made that mistake originally? Interesting. Then we're back in 1999. This is one you'll really like. The highest rated segment in Raw history, in terms of audience size. And it featured Mankind Mick Foley presenting This Is Your Life, the presentation to The Rock. I'm sure you remember it well when they brought out the ex-sweetheart, they brought out the old teacher, and the gym was it the coach and stuff like that.
A bad habit.
Yeah. Take your poo-tang out of here and all this. It was quality, yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. So yeah, that was 99. So there is some good stuff from this week and stuff like that, but you can tell some of it as well. It has aged really, really well and it sticks in our minds, but you can tell it was kind of a little bit of filler as well, you know.
We don't decide the weeks, people.
Yeah, we go back a year. We go back a year to 1998 at a Raw's War taping. And you'll remember this one as well. This was Vince McMahon in the hospital. And you remember Foley came in first to cheer him up. And that was the debut of one Socko. If you remember, this is the first time he was featured. And of course, how could we forget the attack with the bedpan and the thing up the backside and stuff like that from one Stone Cold Steve Austin, who gave him a right beat down in the bed that night.
I still think it's one of the funniest, if not. I think that alongside The Rock and Austin serenading us, I still think that's one of the funniest moments of pro wrestling. It has to be in the top 3.
when you see him hitting him with the bedpan, and of course McMahon brings his head up to meet it and everything and all. And Vince was absolutely brilliant as well. He was brilliant in the segment.
And then Austin hitting the worst shots on the
and then he
ankle.
goes to get away, and he's in the gown and all, and then Austin just gives him the thing up the backside and all and everything. Oh, it was classic stuff. But it was a real moment and stuff like that. But that was Vince at his absolute peak. It was brilliant.
Finest, yeah.
2005 one you'll be interested in. One CM Punk wrestles his first match as a WWE contracted wrestler when he defeats Danny Inferno in Ohio Valley Wrestling. That was his debut back in 2005. His debut.
Can't say I remember the match well because
they didn't cover much of it back then. Actually, unfortunately, I think you used to be able to get the DVDs or something back then and stuff like that. But that was his debut as a WWE contracted wrestler. Of course, he was wrestling well before.
I believe Heyman took over just after Cornette around that time in Ohio Valley. So
yeah, I think that's when the transition. They were transitioning nearly into Florida Championship Wrestling at that stage, right? The FCW
exactly.
Pretty cool. And then we finish out with one that we really liked ourselves, as you know, we're historians of this as well. 2019, the NWA taped their first batch of episodes for their new series, NWA Power, which we really enjoyed. It was a real throwback at the time. And I think on a number of Podmen episodes, we bigged it up and talked it up and stuff like that and thought it was absolutely brilliant. Real throwback to the 80s.
That got us through the lockdown in a lot of ways, didn't it?
It did, absolutely. Yeah, it was the topic of many a conversation on those podcasts and stuff like that. So yeah, that's everything I have for the week in wrestling. So we have some notable birthdays to mention, of course. Asuka, of course, celebrates her birthday this week, 1981. Marufuji, 1979.
Asuka was 1981.
81, yeah, 81.
Holy Jesus, she's older than me.
There you go. Marginally.
You always surprise me with these ones. I'm always like, what the fuck? Like, Jesus H. Christ,
they have a great lifestyle and a great diet, so they age brilliantly, don't they, really?
Oh, Jesus, no crow's feet on her face, anyway.
Of course, one we have to mention, of course, 1948, Kendo Nagasaki. Celebrates the birthday this week as well. And of course, the one Steve Blackman, Mr. Hardcore Champion himself, 1963 was his birthday. And recently returned, Johnny Gargano's wife, who just recently returned to her screen. She had a baby and took some time out and stuff, that 1985. And we rounded out, of course, with the green spew from the man himself, Tajiri. 1970. 2 years older than me. Celebrates 52 this week. He will be. That's giving away my age. That's your notable birthdays for this week.
It's mad, isn't it?
It is mad.
Wow,
it's crazy.
That's crazy to me. Yeah, like I wouldn't have even had Tajiri because I've seen a recent picture of him. I wouldn't have even had him.
Yeah.
You know, at that age, yeah.
And he's been through the wars. He's been through the wars.
Whatever they eat and drink over in the Orient, you can see why they don't age. Put it that way.
Yeah, well, that's a good span there. We went from 1948 right up to 1985. So it's quite a...
And shout out to Kendo Nagasaki. I mean, one of the...
Absolutely.
I mean, we talk about kayfabe.
Pioneers.
One of the first kayfabes in British wrestling. You know, where people didn't know whether he was Japanese or not. I mean, all you have to do is go back and look at the fucking match now and realize that it's all in the eyes.
Absolutely.
But, I guess people were.
It was nicer back then when we weren't as intelligent, wasn't it? It was more innocent.
It really was. It really was.
More innocent. But yeah, he donned our screens on a Saturday afternoon, World of Sport and stuff. He was brilliant. Yeah. Next week, though. Next week should be a good week. Coming up, of course, we have 25 years of the Big Red Machine himself, Kane, which should be really, really good. And also we have Extreme Rules coming up, so we'll be doing a preview of Extreme Rules, some interesting changes to it and stuff like that. And should be a nice pay-per-view with a lead into Survivor Series and stuff like that. So yeah, absolutely.
Looking forward to it, and for us Europeans as well, it's kind of great that we still get those Saturday pay-per-views. So
never change it. Never change it.
Never change it. Let Tony keep doing the Sunday shows, and we will keep reaping the rewards. Because no one wants to see that anyway. No, I'm teasing. No, 100%. Obviously, next week I am going to be over in Paris So we will definitely have a show, obviously, to to bring you the preview of Extreme Rules. So it will be either Niall and myself, or Niall on his own, or we might have the return of one of our favorite guests we won't mention. But no doubt there will definitely be a show
Yeah.
On that. And then, of course, myself and Niall will bring you 25 years of the Big Red Machine, which I'm kind of looking forward to, because Kane is another one that's not really talked about enough, or even, in my opinion, respected enough within the wrestling circles. He is within the business, but not necessarily within conversation. I think.
Yeah, I think for a non-screen monster, he was probably just too nice backstage. He seems to be just a genuine nice guy. Like, and then you imagine he walks through the curtain, and then he's this huge red guy from hell, killer monster. You know what I mean? It's crazy, like, crazy.
I think he got more heat for being a Republican. For being a Republican that he's ever had in his entire career. So it's kind of one of those. It's like, shit, you want to put the mask back on?
Remember when we heard he was running for mayor and stuff like that, and we were going, oh no, come on, you're killing us here. He's Kane. How can you run for mayor? You know what I mean? Like, it was like, yeah. Kayfabe is well and truly dead.
Absolutely well and truly dead. Yeah. All of our dreams and hopes are crushed.
Yeah. So that's it. One. 25 years of the Undertaker's brother. We can leave it at that.
At least Undertaker keeps his politics to himself. But he's from Texas.
He has his own.
Exactly.
It's his own country.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. I'll just live on my farm and that's it. Well, look, it's been absolutely phenomenal. Once again, a great show. Got a lot packed into that show. No doubt. Obviously, next week we're going to be talking about the pay-per-view. So I'm sure there will be little bits and bobs and wrestling news. If something comes up in the ever-changing world of professional wrestling, brackets AEW, and I'm sure Niall will be here while I'm holidaying to make sure that you know about it. That's for sure. But until next week, Niall, of course, it's always a pleasure. And for each and every one of you, don't forget, like I said at the start of the show, do be sure to like, subscribe, smash the bell notification, leave your comments in the comment section, and let us know what you think of Dynamo's Dozen this week and ongoing. But until the next time, for me, Ian the Dynamo Kelly, for Niall the Shopkeeper Hogan, we are over and out.